Hello and welcome. It is 10:30. It is the 15th day of June, 2021. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGN. This is my second attempt at recording this because my computer's a piece of shit and doesn't do what I want it to. So support me so I can buy a new computer and a new camera. Anyways, you have asked for me to tell you stories of what's going on at my gaming table. Of course, nothing is going on at my gaming table now because I haven't played or run in over a year. So all I can do is relate stories from my gaming past. So if you're wondering what this picture of this strange man in this weird-looking suit with dots on his head standing next to Godzilla and whatever the hell that is has to do with my gaming history, well, this man is World Martial Arts Hall of Fame member TJ Storm, who is also an award-winning motion capture artist, actor, one of the most requested motion capture artists in the world, who has, amongst other things, been Godzilla in the last 3 Godzilla films. He was also the Predator in the most recent Predator films. He was also the motion capture artist for Colossus in both the Deadpool films. He was the motion capture artist for Darth Vader in the Darth Vader Immortal Oculus game. He was also, I believe, motion captured some of the work for Groot from Infinity Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, he played Doom Master in VR Troopers. World Martial Arts Hall of Fame member TJ Storm, Doom Master from VR Troopers, the one I will never let him forget. What does this have to do with my D&D history, you may ask? Well, TJ Storm was, amongst other things, the Dungeon Master of the longest-running D&D game I was ever in. A D&D game that lasted pretty much consistently for 15 years. And amongst other things, featured my character, Myron Nagadine, for several of those years. So this is the story of how I met TJ Storm and became a member of the Company of the Bull and a 15-year-long Dungeons & Dragons game, as well as meeting one of my closest, dearest friends, a man who has helped me through so many dark times and has always been there for me whenever I needed him, no matter what he was doing, and has great stories. And if you wonder about, gaming with actors and Critical Role and blah, 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 well, he's been on Critical Role, and he has an actor, and I've gamed at a table with him and several other actors, so completely different. Critical Role again. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to get into how I met this amazingly ridiculous human being. We're going back to the early 90s. I'd just gotten out of school, so we're talking 1990, 1991. I've been gaming with an individual named Tom Lindgreen and a couple others, and we had gone to a gaming convention in Los Angeles at the LAX Hyatt. This was back when Strategicon was still a thing, and they had gaming conventions at hotels, and it was board games, cosplay, science fiction, role-playing, stuff like that. And we were wandering around looking for an open game. I think the reason why Tom was there is he was selling some D&D product that he had made at the time. He was working for a company that was making D&D dioramas, terrain things. So, yeah, I think he was selling that, and I'd gone with him. And we decided to look for a game to sit in on. And there was this very over-the-top, loud, outrageous man running a game of D&D with a couple other peoples. I believe Josh Maximum was there. Jay Willis was there. Charles Snyder was there. A few other people. Jeff Wolf. A couple other people who were actors and martial artists. And we asked if we could sit in. So we sat in. And I brought out my character, Ajax Grimrock, who was this very angry dwarf I had played. I played Ajax Grimrock through the Time of Trouble Avatar Crisis campaign, which was like, the whole how the gods fell and Midnight became the god of magic in the Forgotten Realms, and how they explained the changes in additions back then. So here was this very angry, driven dwarf who was sort of a manifestation of all the anger and emotional issues I was going through at the time, who just wanted to kill monsters and protect people from monsters because he had seen, what had happened to the world when the gods fell. And he had no alliance to the gods. He thought the gods were just as much causing for trouble. And he had this goal where he wanted to kill one of every monster A through Z. So we sat down, we started gaming, and since Tom had DM'd some games, TJ asked Tom if there was any enemies in my character's life from the previous games he was in, and there were this family of harpies sisters, and I had made enemies with them because I killed one of the sisters, but I was never able to kill the rest of the family. So the game progressed an hour or two, and then suddenly the party gets attacked by harpies. And I'm like, God damn it. And amongst the harpies were the 3 remaining sisters who were angry at me for killing their sister, and they were attacking the party, attacking me. One of them, throwing spells, doing harpy things, trying to do charm stuff. And then one of the harpy sisters, the oldest of the 3, the mother, grabs me and just flies off with me into the sky. And, those people who can take shots at it, miss, stuff like that. Is just going higher and higher, and everybody's, either laughing or worried about me. I'm really upset because I'm in this situation where I just can't get out of it, and I'm trying everything I can think of to get out of the harpy's grip. I'm trying to strength my way free, dex my way free, which I had a crappy dex because this was, the days when you rolled stats 3d6. Trying to stab her. I couldn't swing my axe because of, she was holding me, and every time I tried to move, I had to make a dex check or risk falling, and then finally she drops me. She goes as high as she can possibly go, then just lets go. And of course I try and grab her and fail. I was just failing rolls left and right, and I was half angry, half laughing. All the tables just what are they gonna do? And I'm just plummeting to my death, at hundreds of miles an hour towards the surface of the Forgotten Realms. And I'm trying everything I can think of to stop my fall. And I literally don't have anything on my character that could help me survive. Even nothing. I had a ring of swimming. I was like, how's that going to help me from falling? And I had potions of healing and potions of, nothing I had. I was like, can I put myself in my bag of holding and, maybe I'll survive the crash? And they're like, everybody's like, well, no, because A, there's no air in the bag of holding, you'll suffocate, and B, the impact damage is still going to happen to the bag of holding and probably to you as well. So I was just trying everything. I'm like, can I make a parachute out of my blanket? Can I fashion a pair of wings out of this wood? If I light a torch and hold it over my backpack, can I make a hot air balloon? I'm just tossing anything I could out to survive. And most of the answers were no, or, well, that's really clever, you can try, or I don't think that's actually going to work. Like the torch hot air balloon one was like, well, that's, not going to work. But anything's possible if you roll a natural 20. But of course, the second I light the torch, it goes out because I'm falling for fast, and of course I have to have my hands free, which means I have to, how am I going to get the torch over the backpack? And of course the torch keeps going out, and just everything I could think of. But eventually, impact. And that's the point where we have to figure out how much damage did I take, even if I roll for half. And I don't remember if nobody knew the falling damage rules, or there were no falling damage rules back then, or just the falling damage rules didn't really take into account, that massive of a drop. There's a big difference between dropping 30 feet down a pit and being dropped thousands of feet at, impact velocity. So we try, Jay Willis and TJ Storm try and figure out the impact velocity formula in relations to D&D and how many D10 I'm going to take, because back then a fall was 1 D10 per 10 feet. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was a lot. I was dead. Dead. And obviously I was upset because that character meant a lot to me at the time, and just, I was in a place emotionally where anything set me off. And I think TJ could tell I was upset. So he just said, this happens, blah, 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 but your impact creates a crater. And he takes out his map of the Forgotten Realms and he draws where the crater is. Ajax Crater is now on his Forgotten Realms map. And everybody's like, yeah, you died, but how cool is this? You've literally changed the landscape of the Forgotten Realms. Stories are going to be told about this strange meteor that crashed and created this crater. And it did, because, I ended up playing with TJ Storm for 15 years on and off. And often, whenever the map would come out, there it would still be on the map. He remembered, and if any characters were ever in the area where the crater was, it would come up in conversations, like, I remember before the crater was there. So TJ ran with it for a very long time. So any bad feelings I had were just overwhelmed by the fact that this man had, made such what's the word I'm looking for? Determination. God damn it. Investment in this story that he drew it on his map and would bring it back up years later. So I left the convention. That we traded phone numbers. I went home. I figured I'd never see them again, because I thought they all lived down by the airport. It turns out TJ Storm lives a couple blocks from my house, where I was living at the time in Studio City, and Jay Willis lives a couple blocks. In fact, they all live relatively close to me in Studio City. So they invited me to a game. And of course, this was the game where I rolled the really crappy stats for the wizard that would become Myron Nagadine, who in his very first outing single-handedly took out an ogre. And that was just my introduction. And from then on, for 15 years, I gamed with these guys. Not always the same campaign. Sometimes we would take breaks. Sometimes we would play different games. When Magic became a thing, we often would skip games for, days, weeks, months at a time to play Magic because we all just love Magic so much. TJ never, ever gave me a reason to regret knowing him as a friend. He never lost his temper with me. He was always a positive influence in my life. He always made me laugh. He always made me feel welcome in his house, even when he was living in this teeny little crappy apartment that was smaller than my current apartment. He was, I could show up at his door at, 11 o'clock at night on my way home, and he would be there and we would talk. He still, to this day, I can send him a text and know that, if nothing else, he'll take 2 seconds out to text me back going, love you, brother, miss you, brother. And he's this huge, mega Hollywood, worldwide recognized star. I mean, the man is fucking Godzilla and Darth Vader. I can literally say, hey, I know Godzilla. I know Darth Vader. I'm literally on a first name basis with Colossus. So yeah, that is the story of how I met TJ Storm, how I lost my dwarf character Ajax Grimrock, how the Ajax crater was created in TJ's versions of the Forgotten Realms, and it's still, as far as I know, on his map to this day. I mean, I haven't gamed with him in a couple years, but yeah, it always came up whenever we were playing the game. If we were anywhere near that crater, it would come up, and we would tell the story of how we met to anybody who didn't know us. So yeah, and if he looks familiar, he has been on several television shows, and he has been on several video programs, and you have probably seen him at D&D things. So that is the story of how I met TJ Storm, played in a 15-year-long game. The man is still my role model of, how to be a good DM and how to tell a good story and just what D&D should be like. So if you appreciate this content, let me know. If you want to hear more stories like this, let me know. If you don't, of course, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 500 subs by August 4th, and we'll do something crazy. Support me with the Kaifo or the PayPal or any other way you'd like to support me. Help me buy a new computer, new camera, and pay to do more adventures. Going to the dinosaur thing was awesome, and I would like to do more stuff like that with you guys. And God, I cannot talk today. I'm sorry. My brain is turning to mush, guys. Don't listen to me. Till next time, I'm your grumpy guide to all things gaming. I will talk to you Steves later. TJ Storm, Betty. TJ Storm.